right, so now that we have our map that we're going to be working with, I'm going to clear off the selection in this case. So we still have this time series here that we've got. We also have the municipalities. We've got this hybrid reference layer that we can turn on and off. We've got the prefectures. So we have all of this. This is what we use to make our our map of Japan in the layout. So what we're going to do is we're going to actually turn this into a web map as well. And so to do this, the first thing that we have to do is actually create a web map. And so this is fairly easy to do in GIS itself. We can upload it into the ArcGIS online servers, and we can host it there through our accounts. Now, one of the important things about this is that you are going to want to make sure that the names attached to each of these layers is something that is fairly reasonable to read for the person that you want to read it. So, I mean, oftentimes with this, we'll see things like layer names that are something to the effect of this when we first load things in. Right, so we have the underscores, they kind of look like this. We have maybe not complete and very nice readable things. And so in this particular case, what we'll want to do is we'll want to change that. So to do that, we're going to want to right click on the layer, whichever layer we're interested in, and go to properties. This will pull up all of the different properties that we have. And so in here, we can switch this out and we can say that this is earthquakes of Japan. And if you want to have other characters in there, so we can say 1960 to 2023, for example, or 2024 is this particular data set. So you can have characters, you can have spaces. This does not change the backend data, but it does change how it looks. And so when we upload this stuff to Arc Online, it's going to change how the layer shows up there as well. And this is important because while we can get around these things in our own layouts, like we already did by having color schemes, and we have adjusted it so that there is no legend attached to it, right? So we've already adjusted those things. But we can't do that when we are working with Arc Online or any of our web designs. And so we want to make sure that everything is as nice and clean as possible. So that's going to be the first one. The next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to head over into our attribute table and see how everything looks. So now, in this particular case, these ones are all fairly decent. This one has event ID, alert, and that's the pager. We've got the community decibel intensity, the event details, distance. So all of these aliases are fairly good, which is kind of nice. This will not always be the case, and so sometimes you'll have to change these. And so to do that, you're going to want to head over into the fields view. The fields view will have what the field name is. This is oftentimes what shows up. So you'll see that these don't look very nice. And then you'll also see all the things that are available for it. Now, the other thing you can do in here is you can check on or off what you want visible. And this is important because anything that's visible here is what's going to be visible to the person who's looking at it and playing around with it online. So if you don't want these things visible, then you're going to want to uncheck them. That doesn't mean you delete them, it just hides them. So for example, we don't really need the latitude and longitude in this particular case. We don't really need when it was updated. We don't even really need what the product type is. We can keep, I suppose, the event type and the warning. If there was a title, the time we'll want to keep, whether we maybe don't need the network or review status. Maybe we want to keep the event significance. We'll want to keep the location name. Maybe we don't need this source. We'll want to keep these magnitudes. Maybe for this web map, we don't need these associated IDs or this azimuthal gap. Those ones would be more for some sort of event analysis that we wanted to do. And then maybe we don't need the source code or the alert level, or maybe we'll keep the event ID just in case. And so then we have all those things. So I can click off of those. I'll ask you if you want to save it, and I say yes. And so now you'll see that this is a lot closer to something that is not incredibly large, right? And so, and then I can look and say, oh, okay, well the shake intensity doesn't really have a good set of information. And same thing with the tsunami warning. Maybe that doesn't have a great set of information. And then also maybe I don't need 3 of these depths, and then maybe I also don't need the event type. So I can go back and say, okay, well, I don't need those things because they're redundant. Okay, so we already know that it's an event type of an earthquake. There's 3 of these, we don't really need those. And then the last one was the tsunami warning I didn't really need, and the felt reports was largely null. And so now I can check those off. I can go here, and then I can see what we have. Okay, so now I've got those things. So now I've got all of the things, all of them have a good chunk of information. Maybe I want to get rid of the shake intensity, but overall it's pretty good. So then I can go over and I can right click on the Japanese municipalities for the population, and I can open up the attribute table and look at the same things. So now in this case, I've got the name of the municipality, I have the total 2021 population, and I have the area in square kilometers. All of that is fairly fine, and same thing with the Japanese prefectures, open that up, and I've got those 2. But then you'll notice that I have these ISO codes. Now for my map, again, I'm not really interested in sharing those things, right? It's like I don't really need those things. So I'm gonna go over into that, and you'll notice that these ISO 2s, these ones don't have any sort of alias attached to it. So I'm just gonna get rid of those. I'm gonna uncheck them, we don't really need that. And then I am also gonna uncheck this ISO subdivision code, and we're gonna say that that's fine. I'm gonna say, yeah, that's good. And so now I have the name, the area in square kilometers, the 2021 total population, and the full ISO code. So all of these are fairly readable now. There's nothing too crazy in here. So I'm gonna check all of these off. I'm gonna save this. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to, well, so there's a couple of different things. Anything that I have in here is going to show up in the map that I present, and that includes the base map. So if I want to change what this base map is, under the map ribbon, I can also do that. So I can go into the base maps here and see if there's one that works a little bit better. So normally I'm a dark map person, but I've chosen in this case fairly light colors because these ones were originally designed for that layout that had the white background, right? And so because of that, maybe this dark one, like when I put this one on, it kind of blends out all of these things and it really loses its appeal. So despite the fact that I normally choose that, what I'm actually going to do here is I'm going to see if there's another one that it actually looks a little bit better. And so maybe it's a little bit more on the gray side. So this one's actually not too bad. So this one actually has this kind of gray zone. So that one's not bad. Or I can go down and see if there's other ones that I'm interested in. Maybe this light gray canvas one instead. The light gray canvas one is not too bad, but I think actually what I like is this human geography one. So this human geography one that I had chosen the last time around, I like how the reference pops out, and you can see on here that I can uncheck or check on those labels. I can check on and check off the details. I can check on and check off the base. So I have all of those different options for this. So I think I like this one the best. And so once I'm happy with this, then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go over to share. So this kind of functions like any of the other social media things. You wanna share your map. And so I'm gonna pull this down a little bit. I'm gonna say I want the web map. I'm gonna share a web map. So this one here. So what this is gonna do is it's gonna take all of the layers, all of the data that you have, put it all together, take all of the symbols, put those all together, and it's going to take that collective thing and put it up into the web. Now in here you have the ability, and you should put in information about your map. So in this particular case, I'm going to call this seismic risk in Japan, and I'm going to say that this is from 1960 to 2023. And so this is data is taken from the USGS Hazards Program, and the and Living Atlas web map. The web map shows the locations of of earthquakes from 1960 to 2023 that have a magnitude greater than 4. And that's perfectly fine. So this summary is just the small bit of information. So none of these are locked in stone. You can change them once you get to Arc Online, but it is a good idea to at least have some, because oftentimes we forget where those things are. And so in here, we can also have some keywords or tags. This allows for greater searchability. So I can say that this is in Japan. I can say that this is earthquakes. I can say this is seismic risk. I can say that this is USGS data. I'm gonna go back there, fix that. I'm gonna say this is USGS data. I can say that this is Japanese earthquakes. Nope, there we go. Japanese earthquakes. I can say that this is geology. Actually, it's more seismology. Alright, so just a bunch of tags that if someone's searching for things, maybe your information pops up. Now, it's not necessarily critical, but it is kind of a good thing to have if you want to increase the visibility of whatever it is that you're producing. This also is a good way to keep track of some of the common tags that you will use. So if you already have things that are under different tags, it might start to pop up, and so then you can search your own data for certain things on certain topics. So a really good example of that is Bucknell University has a lot of Civil War maps and a lot of old census maps, and so you can go through and just type in Civil War and Bucknell University, and all of the Civil War things are going to pop up. And so that can be very, very useful. So from there, you're going to select a configuration. Now, for most purposes, what you're going to do is you're going to copy all of the data. We have enough storage on our USM servers for all of your data for USM students, but it also is just a good idea to have copies of that if you can. It means that you can use them and things like that. This won't always necessarily be the case if you are working for larger corporations, and they may have other policies and procedures, and so it may have to go into dev and then they figure out the data and put it into prod. So, but for the purpose of all the assignments, you're going to copy all of the data, and then from there, there's not a really good foldering storage for your content. And so you will just have your root one. You can have one level of folders, and so you can just hit create new folder. This is going to keep all of your things together. I already have that with GHY 210 and cartography, so I'm just going to put this in the cartography one. Now with share, one of the things with share is that you can share with everyone. You can share with your organization, or you can just keep it to yourself or to a group of people. Now with that, if you have an admin at your organization, they'll be able to see all of your data regardless. But outside of that, this is a fairly good way to limit what other people can access. However, if you are creating public pieces, then you need to have all of your data also listed to public, because you can't have an application that uses your data without having your data as public. Now, there are other ways that you can lock down your data so it can't be downloaded, all of those different things. Some of that is under your configuration, but for most of this data is not really going to do a whole lot. And so in this case, you can share it with, in our case, the University of Southern Mississippi, and everyone at USM will be able to see what you've created. If you want to share it with everyone, by all means. And so then you're going to analyze the data. Now, when you first do this, it is going to throw back some errors. This is very, very common. And so there's a couple things. So the first one says that a text element may not be displayed. This isn't really something that you can do anything about. Basically, it says that it uses some sort of thing in the pop-up. They already created some sort of pop-up thing. We're going to create our own pop-up, so we're not going to worry about that. Oftentimes, you'll also see that the the projection is not the same as what you need it to be. Most of these you can double click on the actual error and it's going to pop up with what the error is, or it will fix the error. And so in this case there is no error, so we're just going to hit share and we're going to say okay, that's going to be fine. And so it's going to take a minute to share, and so we're going to wait patiently, and then we will be back in the next video to take a look at where it has gone.